What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video, back with another live. And today I'm going to be talking about a quite controversial topic. I'm going to be talking about interracial dating and the struggles that come with it. Look, let me just make a quick disclaimer here, all right? In no way am I trying to say that, hey, people should not be in interracial relationships. If that's what you want to do, that's your choice. All I'm simply saying is that the point of this live, the point of this video, is to address the challenges and the problems that come with interracial dating, so that if you are an individual who decides to pursue an interracial relationships, you know what to expect. Because I feel like in today's time, and in today's media and modern day, when people talk about interracial dating, interracial marriage, a lot of times, it gets romanticized, it gets pedestalized, and so the struggles don't get talked about. And so when people dive into this relationship, now look, you're going to have someone in the chat say, well, my marriage was also 15. Look, yes, there's gonna be your exceptions, right? There's gonna be your exceptions. But for most people, that engaged in interracial relationships, they have a lot of struggles. And most of the time they don't talk about it, right? And so today we're going to address those struggles. We're going to talk about it. And we're going to, I think, talk about whether or not interracial marriage is for you or not. And I think also talk about all of the hidden struggles that people don't want to address. But before we get into that, let's get into our intro. So before I dive into the topic, let me play this quick video and then we'll continue from there.
Dr. Jones, back in 1965, we had Mildred and Richard Loving, the first interracial couple in America allowed to be married. Married couple. 1965, that's not so far long ago. But, we're seeing it more often now. But a viewer out there says, as an African-American man, says he regrets marrying his white wife because there are cultural differences, disparities. She didn't quite get his culture, not defending him. Your thoughts on that? Where should they go? Should they just call it quits or try to work it out?
Now, let me address now. You guys heard the clip. You saw the video, right? I have a lot of friends, a lot of people who have engaged in interracial marriage relationships. And what I typically see is that because right now, everyone is trying to over-romanticize, pedestalize interracial dating, interracial relationships, when the average person, it's not everyone, right? You're going to have your exception. When the average person decides to dive into this, they are going to face these struggles. But a lot of times, they can't really come out and express the struggles they're going through because it's viewed as taboo, right? It goes against a sort of narrative. And here's what I'm going to say, right? Okay, look. Here you have a black man who says he got married to a white woman and he's facing culture issues. I believe him. I've seen this happen a lot in my personal life. But the problem is that because, in this society and around the world, people have fought so hard for interracial relationships to even be a choice. When people go through these struggles, they tend to hide it, right? Very few times people actually go out and say, hey, I'm going through these cultural issues because they don't want it to be taboo. They don't want to get a backlash. Let's address what's being said here. Number one, okay, if you are going to be an interracial, because this is what people are not going to tell you, right? Because when folks talk about interracial marriage, they like to romanticize it, they like to pedestalize it. So let's dive into it, right? Number one, if you're going to be in interracial dating, interracial relationships, the number one struggle you're going to face is the family. Before you even get into the culture, before you even get into the side, right? The biggest struggle you are going to face when trying to engage in an interracial dating, interracial marriage is going to be the family. Because one thing that studies have shown is that although when the average person is asked, do you support interracial dating, right? Most people are going to say the politically correct answer, which is yes. But then for others, but these studies also show that, hey, although most people will say, generically, yes, I support interracial dating, if somebody in their own family were to actually interracially date, the approval goes down. So in other words, when you ask the average person, hey, do you support interracial marriage? They'll say yes. But if somebody in their own family, the daughter, the son, the sister, brother were to engage in an interracial marriage, the approval actually goes down, right? It's this weird dichotomy. And so when you understand this, then you understand why, despite, everyone having this positive attitude, despite the media promoting it, despite everyone, being hugging, loving, despite all this image, what we see that if you typically, when you actually go out there and start dating interracially and marry, and now this is not for everyone, right? You're going to have your exceptions. You're going to have your exceptions. But for the most part, when folks go out here and they engage in interracial, quote unquote, relationships, typically what they find is that the family typically is very resistant. And this tends to happen to those of darker skin, browner skin, especially black folks. Okay? Because white people, generally, when a white person interracially dates, it's easier for them to be accepted, right? But if you're a black man, especially, and you're trying to interracially date, remember that the family, more than likely, they may go out there and say, I support interracial marriage, but if their daughter were to bring home a black guy, they're going to have a struggle accepting you. And typically, you're going to have this battle of trying to win over the family acceptance. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, right? Because I have friends, black male friends, where when they will go to quote unquote the quote unquote they're married to interracial, to quote unquote non-black women, right? But of course they're having struggles, and to be honest with you, they're probably gonna get divorced. But when they will go to quote unquote the quote unquote families of the non-black wives, right? The Asian families, white families, the families never wanted the daughter to get married to a black dude, right? But because of the quote unquote political correct nature, they try to quote unquote demonstrate the displeasure with the daughter in different ways. He'll be at a dinner table and they'll look at him funny, right? They won't talk to him, or they won't pass him to the play, or though. And the thing is that if you're a black man, if you're a black man and you're trying to pursue interracial marriage, you're gonna have to prepare that the family may not want you there. You're gonna have to deal with the fact that the family is gonna say, "F you, we don't want you in the table." And really, if you're a man in general, right, and you're trying to quote unquote pursue an interracial relationship, the family is gonna be one of the biggest hurdles. And I think people in general, right, across all races, when they decide to engage in interracial marriage, interracial relationships, the family is gonna be, I will say, one of the biggest struggles. The second, I think, struggle that you're going to have to face is the cultural piece, right? And the cultural piece and the societal piece, which I put them in the same category. I'm gonna tell you why. If you're, let's give an example. If you're a black man, let's say you're quote unquote dealing with an Asian female, right? When you're dealing with her, more than likely she's gonna want to quote unquote keep her culture. Let's say, for example, a black man gets with a Chinese woman, right? She is gonna want to keep her Chinese culture. And so unless you're ready to start, eating Chinese food, wearing some Chinese clothes, watching Chinese movies, Chinese TV shows, listen to that, because she's going to bring her culture with her. So unless you're ready to quote unquote live, immerse yourself in that culture, that's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be a difficult adjustment. But on top of that, it's not just that you're going to have to quote unquote learn how to deal with that new culture. 9 times out of 10, that culture is not going to accept you. So if she takes you over to quote unquote a Chinese function or a Chinese cultural center or quote unquote, a Chinese community, okay, they're not, more than likely, they're not going to want her quote unquote black husband to be a part of the Chinese culture. So in addition to you having to learn having to deal with this new culture, more than likely you're probably not going to be accepted in this new culture, okay? And on a societal level, whenever you as a black man are walking out here with your Chinese wife, you're going to get looks, okay? Black women are going to look at you funny. Black men are going to look at you funny. And most importantly, white men are going to look at you funny because we think, oh, well, why would a white dude care about, a black man being with a Chinese woman? Well, it's very simple. when it comes to white men in many ways view Asian women as like the property, in terms of if they do not get with a white woman, they view Asian women as the next best thing. And for them, Asian women, for the most part, are only valuable because they're the preference. So they view, hey, Asian women should when they date out, should really only be getting with a white dude. So if they see an Asian woman with a black guy, they're like, oh my God, she's a hoe, she's a slut. She should be on white penis. I'm like, this is the mentality. So if you're a black man and you go interracial, remember, you're gonna have to deal with the family. You're gonna have to deal with the cultural differences, and you're gonna have to deal with a societal blowback, right? You're gonna have to deal with you getting those weird looks. And if you're not willing to deal with those struggles, then in my opinion, interracial dating is probably not gonna be for you. Okay. And I think this also applies across the board too, right? If you're an individual, regardless of your race, and you are trying to engage in an interracial marriage, interracial dating, if you're not willing to deal with the family, if you're not ready to deal with the culture and the quote unquote, the possible societal reaction, then interracial dating, interracial marriage is probably not for you. And I think the third and last point that you're gonna have to deal with is the kids, which nobody talks about. These children that are being born are going to have identity issues. If you're a black man and let's say you get married to a Japanese woman, right? I can promise you, okay, 9 times out of 10, Japanese people are not going to claim that child. They're not. As soon as your half black, half Japanese child tries to enter a Japanese, community, they will tell her real quick, you are not Japanese. Okay? So more than likely that that kid is not going to be accepted in that other culture. And in many ways, that the child is going to be forced to be in the black culture. But even being in the black community, a lot of black folks are still going to view her as an outsider. Right? Because look at what happened with Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is biracial, and most of her life, Meghan Markle tried to operate as a mixed biracial female. That was her whole, get to, right? I'm mixed, I'm biracial, right? That was the whole thing. But it wasn't until she tried to, quote unquote, get married to, quote unquote, a white royal family that all of a sudden white folks started treating her as a black woman. And now all of a sudden now she's facing this, quote unquote, black female treatment she's never had to deal with, because she does not look phenotypically like a black woman. She really looks like an Italian female. And so for the first time, she's now being treated like, quote unquote, a phenotypical black woman, and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And she's shaking. And so therefore, because of this, Meghan Markle is having struggles, dealing with this. And so what I will say is that if you're thinking about engaging in an interracial relationship, right, you're going to have to deal with a family, you're going to have to deal with a culture and society, and most importantly, you're going to have to deal with the fact that those kids more than likely are going to go through identity crisis. They're going to go through identity issues, and are going to go through situations which more than likely they're not going to be accepted by both sides. And you're going to end up with a Meghan Markle. But let's go on to the next video here. This is very important because when I talk about interracial dating, right, so far I've only focused on the sort of, American Western perspective. But I feel like if we dive into other foreign countries like Korea and Japan and China, we get a different point of view. And so what we're going to be watching here really quickly is a video, and shout out to the YouTuber K Explorer. And I'm not going to play all of it, but it's a video of a black man who's in Korea, and he's asking, the sort of local Korean population in terms of, hey, how do you view interracial relationships? And are you open to interracial dating? Now, here's the thing, guys. If you guys watched my previous live stream, right, in which I sort of discuss Asians and how they're anti-black, I said that in Asia, there is a color hierarchy. Okay, colorism is on the chains. In Asia, the way it is viewed is that, hey, the idea of having fairer skin and lighter skin is pedestalized. That's how it's viewed over there. Okay? And so when we look at Asians, the lighter skin you are, the higher your status. Now, according to if you ask a lot of Asians, right, what they will tell you is that, hey, in the ancient world, people who tend to be of nobility or who tend to be rural families would essentially stay indoors, so their skin will lighter. But people who are of lower class were out in the fields in the sun, and so the skin will browner. And so in Asia, those who have browner skin are viewed as you know, coming down. So if you have browner skin in Asia, you're viewed as, hey, you descend from a lineage of people who have a lower class. But if you have lighter skin, you're viewed as descended from a lineage of those who have, of those who are higher class. So that's the story I hear. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I typically hear about why they're obsessed about having lighter skin over there. But overall, whether or not that story is true or not, still does not change the fact that, hey, fundamentally in Asia, right, for whatever reason, they tend to prioritize and pedestalize lighter skin. And also, they also tend to view white people as superior to them. And so a white foreigner can go to these Asian countries, Korea, China, fuck the local women, go crazy, and they'll get a pass. But if your black ass, or if you're a brown person, goes over there, then you'll get fucked over. But it's also important to understand that this colorism is so ingrained that even Southeast Asians and Pacific Islanders are looked down upon by East Asians. So Koreans, Japanese, and Chinese people will actually look down on the Southeast Asian and Pacific Islanders, even though they're technically all Asian. But because they tend to have a lighter skin, right? Because the East Asians tend to have lighter skin in the quote unquote the Southeast Asian and the Pacific Islanders, then for a lot of them, they view them as superior, and the Europeans are viewed as superior to them. But let's play the video and let's get into it.
저는 국제 결혼할 거예요. 연애는 일본인이랑 해보고 싶은데 결혼은 완전히 서양 사람이랑 해보고 싶어요.
만약에 국제 결혼을 하게 된다면 할 수 있나요?
옛날에는 하고 싶었는데.
So, I'm currently asking you to ask Koreans what they think of interracial marriage. What do you think of interracial marriage? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. 국제 결혼에 대해서 어떤 생각을 가지고 있나요?
남자나 여자 상대방의 나라에서 살아야 되기 때문에 한 명은 외로울 수 있다고 생각하는데 둘이 서로 사랑하면은 어렵지 않을 거라고 생각합니다.
저 완전 좋아요.
왜 완전 좋은 건가요?
저는 일단 다른 문화를 경험하고 그걸 이해하고 그리고 또 그 문화가 이제 합쳐진 뭔가 아이가 있는 게 뭔가 저는 너무 큰 기회인 것 같아요.
저는 할 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Now, guys, as you guys are watching the video, I'm going to stop it slowly and kind of get my point, but I want you guys to understand this, and this is very important as you watch this, okay? And shout out to YouTuber K Explorer, shout out to brother. What you guys need to understand is that in Asian countries, right, and this is across the board too, if you were to ask the local population, because I want you to see what's about to happen, because you're going to see it. If you to ask the local population, what are your views on interracial marriage? They're going to say, yeah, we're open to it. It's great. And it's amazing, right? And I would love to marry. But here's the problem, right? When you dive deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into quote unquote the conversation, what you tend to find out is that they only support and believe in quote unquote interracial marriage as long as it's them and a quote unquote Western person. You're gonna hear this a lot. Westerner, or another East Asian, right? Preferably Japanese. Okay, Chinese maybe, but typically Japanese. Okay, you'll hear this a lot. Why? Because like I said before, right? In Asia, there is colorism, and those who lighter skin are viewed as on top of the ladder. And because East Asians, Koreans, Japanese, Chinese are viewed as quote unquote tend to be having the lighter skin, right? They're viewed as sort of the top of the sort of Asian hierarchy, right? They're the top. And then below them is Southeast Asians, and below them are Pacific Islanders. The only group that is quote unquote above the East Asians are white people. And so what you will see, they'll say the pro-interracial marriage, the pro-interracial dating, but the reality is that they only support interracial marriage dating as long as they're marrying another East Asian or they're marrying a white person. But if the interracial marriage is between, them but if the interracial marriage, right, is between them and a Pacific Islander, or them and a Southeast Asian, or them and a black person, or them or a brown skinned person, that's when it's a hell to the no. And what you see in these Asian countries is that if they see an Asian and a quote unquote white person, or an Asian or an Asian with a quote unquote Southeast with quote unquote East Asian, it tends to be praised. But if they see an Asian person with a black person, or an Asian person with another another quote unquote Pacific Islander, they'll look down upon. So understand this dynamic.
생각하는데 원하면 저는 국제 결혼할 거예요. 저 외국인 남자가 좋아요.
Actually, like I have foreigner girlfriend. I think it's good. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah.
괜찮다고 생각합니다.
네, 좋게 생각합니다. 저는. 왜냐면 이제 요즘 다문화 가정도 많아지고.
And you're gonna keep hearing this, right? But remember, guys, you have to understand the double speak. When they say that interracial marriage is good, they'll say interracial marriage between them and another East Asian, preferably Japanese, or interracial marriage between them and a white person. That's what they mean when they say this. Okay, so if you're black or brown skin or Southeast Asian or even Pacific Islander, you will face discrimination. You will.
그리고 그렇기 때문에 저는 좋다고 생각해요.
저도 좋다고 생각합니다.
왜 좋다고 생각하고 계신가요?
아무리 다른 인종이라도 서로 좋고 이러면은 저는 당연히 괜찮다고 생각합니다.
저는 국제 결혼 되게 적극 찬성하는 사람입니다. 우리나라 사람들끼리 만나도 좋지만은 외국 사람들끼리 이렇게 다문화적으로 만나면은 아무래도 한국 분위기보다는 이국적인 분위기 많이 띄는 게 저는 되게 보기 좋거든요.
긍정적으로 생각합니다. 일단 뭐 국적이 별로 중요하지 않은 것 같아요. 결혼에 있어서 그냥 사람 잘 맞는 게 중요한 것 같고, 굳이 국제 결혼이 뭔가 다른 점이 있다고 제약을 둘 필요 없지 않을까 그렇게 생각합니다.
저는 엄청 긍정적으로 생각하고 있어요. 왜냐면 우리나라에 지금 외국인도 많고, 그래서 점점 서울만 봐도 지금 엄청 외국인 분들이 많기 때문에, 그래서 국제 결혼은 점점 자연스러워지는 것 같고 긍정적인 시선을 봐야 된다고 생각하고 있어요.
아무래도 국제 결혼을 잘 안 하는 이유는 만날 일이 별로 없어서인 것 같고, 환경만 갖춰진다면 저는 다른 문화권에 있는 사람들과 만난다는 게 굉장히 설레는 일이고 좋은 일이라고 생각해요. 그래서 되게 저도 긍정적입니다.
저는 그거에 대해 차별을 갖는 사람들이 약간 너무 옛날적인 생각을 갖고 있지 않나 생각이 들어요.
저도 이제 문화적인 차이는 무시할 수 없다고 생각을 하는데, 결혼이라는 것은 아무래도 두 사람 간의 감정이 인종보다는 더 중요한 문제라고 생각해서 굉장히 긍정적으로 생각합니다. 저도
짱 좋아요. 너무 좋아요. 왜냐하면은 지금도 외국인이랑 연애해보고 싶어요. 외국인이랑 연애를 하는 것 자체가 뭔가 새롭잖아요. 새롭고, 그리고 다른 나라 언어 배울 수 있다는 것도 너무 좋은 것 같고, 그리고 일단 외국인 분들이 기본적으로 피지컬이 좋기 때문에 한번 꼭 연애해보고 싶어요.
저도 되게 좋은 것 같아요. 뭔가 새롭기도 하고 계속 다른 나라랑 교류하면 좋다고 생각해서 저도 한 번쯤은 연애나 결혼해보고 싶어요.
만약에 국제 결혼을 하게 된다면 할 수 있나요?
옛날에는 하고 싶었는데 지금도 할 생각은 있는데 한국에서 살고 싶은 마음이 더 커진 것 같아요.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop it up here, but remember, guys, okay, and I'm not gonna put the whole thing, but remember, guys, you guys get the whole gist of it. They're all staying all supported, but remember, okay, when they talk about the pro-interracial marriage, they mean interracial marriage between them and a Western person. You're gonna hear this a lot: Western. But Western really means white. That's what they mean, or a Japanese, which means, in other words, another East Asian. Okay. So it's not just so it's not just that here. And the reason why I'm bringing, because a lot of times about interracial dating, it's hyper focused on quote unquote America and the West. But keep in mind, it's not just about here. So if you're a black person, it's not just, especially a black man, it's not just that you're gonna face those, you are gonna be. I have said this a lot, and I get a lot of flack for it. Interracial dating is a white man's game, and I'm just gonna say it. I know black's a good man, but I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? Though when you look across the data, okay, the only group, right, that tends to be able to really interracially date without any really issues are white men, and preferably white, and also white women, but really white men. Everyone else is gonna face some struggles, and at the bottom of that list is black men. So a white dude can hop into any other community Asian, Hispanic, Middle Easterner, well, not even a problem. Black men will face the most struggles trying to interracial date. And so when I hear dudes, especially black men, talking about how they're gonna pass, interracial, like, dude, okay, it's not just that in the West as a black man you're gonna face these struggles the most, right? Trying to date. Even if you go overseas, it's also gonna get worse. The way I view it is this: that okay, here when it comes to interracial dating, and I'm not gonna say this and close it off, right? But here's what I'm gonna say before I close it off. When it comes to interracial dating, there is a spectrum, okay? On one end of the spectrum, you have white people, and on the other hand, you have black folks. And I hate to say, but I saw this globally, okay? White people tend to be globally accepted when it comes to interracial. I mean that a white woman and a white man can essentially go anywhere around the world, and they'll easily. Now, this is not going to happen all the time, but in general, they'll easily be able to be accepted by the culture there, right? A white dude can easily go to China, go to Japan, go to South Korea, go to Brazil, and easily be able to marry into the local population without any problem. A white female can do the same thing, right? On the opposite end of that spectrum is black folks. Black women or black men are going to face the hardest time trying to interracial date. If they go to Japan, if they go to Korea, if they go to China, wherever they go, right, they're going to face the most resistance when trying to interracial marriage with the local population. If you go to Korea, if you're a black man, you're trying to get married with a local Korean woman, right, you're going to face the most pushback compared to a white dude. If you're going to China, it doesn't matter where we go, right? And so on one hand, the most accepted for interracial marriage internationally is white folks, and the least expected for interracial marriage internationally is black folks, and everybody else is in the middle, is in the spectrum. So the closer you are to quote-unquote whiteness, like East Asians, for example, right, it's going to be easier for you to issue a date. But the further away you are from whiteness, like Pacific Islanders, like even brown-skinned people, or even quote-unquote Southeast Asians, for example, the harder it's going to be for you to quote-unquote date out internationally. So when you understand that from that spectrum, white being at the top, black being at the bottom, and everybody else being in between, then you understand why in this interview, right, all of them were right, most of the Koreans had no problem interracial marriage when it came to white folks and other East Asians, but when it came to interracial marriage with Southeast Asians, Pacific Islanders, and black folks, it was a no-no. So once you understand this dynamic, everything else starts to make sense. But with that being said, I will say the whole point of this is so that everyone can be better educated and better understand. Look, there are a lot of struggles. There are a lot of things you're going to have to face if you do decide to pursue an interracial marriage, if you do decide to pursue interracial dating. And there are very few people, very few media outlets, very few resources that really will tell you the truth or really dive into this in a serious way. And so the point of this video and the point of this live stream really was to give a really in-depth analysis and for folks to really understand what they're going to into. Now, if you think that you are able to deal with all these challenges, then go outside. Then I will say, if you're an individual, especially a black man or a black person, right, and you believe that, hey, I am willing to deal with the family not liking me, I'm willing to deal with the cultural differences, I'm willing to deal with the potential societal backlash, I'm willing to deal with the quote-unquote identity issue that the kids may have. If you're willing to deal with all of these challenges and all these struggles, and I say, yes, interracial marriage is for you. But if you don't think you have the stamina and the patience to deal with these challenges and to deal with these struggles, then what I will say is that interracial marriage is probably not going to be for you. And I feel like there are very few people that are really willing to have these serious conversations. Because like this guy said, right, when you go out there and you ask the average person, all you get are simplistic, politically correct answers. Yeah, it's all great. But when you dive deeper, you realize they support interracial marriage until it's their own family members, right? If I remember when you had the whole Black Lives Matter situation, right? And folks were going around asking white folks, hey, how would you feel, if a white person got interracial marriage with a black person? And they all said, yeah, I have no problem with it. But then whenever the conversation was, okay, so if your own sister or if your own brother got married to a black person, how would you feel? All of a sudden, there was a pause, right? There was hesitation, right? So that's what I'm talking about. With that being said, I'm going to leave it there. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think about this. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Put your thoughts below. And with that being said, hammer out.